Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of T.N.T. Garage and Performance. Now, as you can see, I'm doing my intro a little different. The project's already done, but that's only to show you what the end result is and how we got there. See, I started with, a checker universal patch panel kit and one of these Tri-5 Chevy, so 55 to 57, actually two of them, 55 to 57 Chevy radius wheel arch panels that I got through Jags at Classic Auto Parts. It's a retailer on those. So basically I did a lot of cutting, a lot of welding. You could see a lot of rust right there. You could see a lot of rust right there. I've had to hand fabricate a bunch of panels, and all I was really doing is going from this to that. So it's kind of a fun project. Hopefully you guys stick around, check it out. There's some good music in this video, so let's get to it. Alright, well the first thing I did was of course get the car away from the wall, and since the front section of this frame is pretty much gone, the car is sitting like that, I got a jack under the front close to the wheel itself so we don't actually pick up the back of the car while we're jacking it up. And what I did was measured from the ground to the wheel, the existing wheel arch, and it's about 28 inches on each side, because I do kind of want this to look okay. And as much as I like these, like, gravel deflectors, gravel guards, fender guards, whatever you want to call them, I'm going to have to take them off. I don't want to cut them up, as cool as it would look. So these will be donated, sold, to another checker in need. But first things first, to get this off, I got to get this stupid big Phillips screw out of here. So I'm going to grab the depth wheel, cut a groove in it, see if I can't get it with a flathead screwdriver, see if there's any metal actually behind here. Well, the good news is I can check the tread on the tire pretty well. So looks like we're going to have to make a patch panel here, but first we're going to get our arch laid out. Now, looking at this, the body line, the curvature of the panel is actually about the same, which is good. But the reason why I wanted to go with a formed piece like this is to get this formed lip. And the reason why is there's a body line right here in the car. If I were to just radius this, it'd look really stupid with that step in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to section this in and get this body line to kind of just graft into this part of the formed lip. So basically it's just lay the panel on, kind of figure out where I want it, and then we can make our marks. And then we can start really cutting some sheet metal, and we'll have plenty of patches to be made, but I want to start somewhere. So we're going to start with this. There's a kind of a good crease right here I'm going to have to work out with a hammer and dolly before I fit this for good, but it's all part of working on an older car. So I kind of already laid it up in here, and once I find my tape measure, I can see how much tuck there is in this tire to see where the bottom of our fender really needs to be, our quarter. But this is a 29-inch tall tire, so probably gonna run 28-inch slicks on this car. So if it's just a little higher than where this tire would land, we should be all right, provided the rear suspension doesn't completely clap out. And so I'm going to grab a tape measure, which is right here, and kind of see Nice thing about these old school like Armstrong tires, you just hook the tape measure right on them and you know exactly where it's going to be. So the tire goes up about 3 inches into the wheel well. So I'll grab my marker. So this is where the tire is, right there, with a pretty dark line. And now we can lay our wheel arch up in there and then just go slightly higher than that. So probably about a 1/2 inch up is where we're going to want to be. And also kind of have it somewhat centered there. These are just marks to give us the layout. This isn't the final cut. I'll do some measurements to make sure our arch is square with the body line of the car, because this line is pretty much level across the car till we get to the very back. So from where my mark is, 4 7/8, about 4 3/4. So before I really get into cutting, taking too much away here, I'm really going to step back, get this kind of hung in place, and kind of see where we're at here as far as getting it centered with the axle center line. So I'll get this mocked up and see where we're at. All right, well, we got it mocked in, it measured in good, the gap looks right for the wheel. So I'm going to take a ground down screwdriver and basically use it as my scribe to where it's going to go, so I know it's my final measurement. So now we pretty much got this laid out, and what I'm going to do when I hack this out is actually cut probably just 1/8 of an inch, if that, 1/16 of an inch on the other side of my line, because you can always take more metal away. You can't really add it. The wheel arch, obviously where I cut this, is going to go up further. But first things first, before I get too crazy on this, I'm going to work that crease out of the rear of the quarter there. So when I put this panel in, it will actually meet it up pretty well. Also, given that I will be sectioning this piece here to meet this body line, I'm also going to mark here, because pretty much I'm going to take out all of this below here where this kind of body roll can come into the flare. So we're just going to make a mark where each end of that body line is. Then we know below that we can go ahead and remove it up to the start of that line. All right, so this is pretty much what my vision's telling me, to where I can keep at least this and this, where we're going to graft it into the fender. So what I did was I clamped the wheel arch up into place, flat like that, and then just scribed on the back side. Just like that. And of course we'll come straight across here just to before where this lip is. I want to leave plenty of material to work with, but we'll get the death wheel out and start kind of chopping this part out, giving myself plenty of material to make mistakes with, basically. So I need to switch my grinder and we can get it cutting again. Well, I learned a couple things, and I decided just to take it all the way down. Really didn't matter that I took these chunks out, but basically it's some stuff I'm going to apply to the other side. But we got this pretty well matched up, and what I'm using to hold it in here are these welding clamps. These work great for body work because they're nice and thin. It's about the width of my cutting wheel, and the gap's a little bigger and smaller here and there. But what these allow you to do is to clamp your panel in place real flush with your existing sheet metal. So basically how they work is you stick this through the panel and then stick your bar through the back of it. So I'm going to put this last one in, and then I can go ahead and begin to tack this panel in. I'm not going to do the finish weld on it until I get enough tacks where I have it where I want it, where it's flush with the existing sheet metal, and then we can start grafting in these lower pieces down here. Now, like this piece, kind of what I'm going to get at is we're going to blend this kick out body line into this fender lip, so it looks a lot better than just having, you know, a body line and no body line. But first, we're going to clamp this in and then start throwing some tacks at it. So we're going to slide through the gap. There we go. And then get our bar stock through the back of it. Maybe. They make a couple different kinds of these. These are just the ones I found locally. There we go. And then you just tighten it up. And it brings both panels together. So I'm going to get the welder out and we're going to start tacking this bad boy in. All right, well, we got that part of the sheet metal, and now it's time to kind of suss out just exactly how I'm going to take panels like this and get them to work with this fender. So probably going to radius this a little more and then work this at an angle that'll meet the step out of this lip. And yeah, that'll probably take some doing. So a little bit of grinding, a little bit of cutting, and I think we can make this work. And then of course I'm going to have to use this down here to help rebuild this part of the quarter, so we actually have front side of the quarter. So let's get to working this out. All right, well, I think I have this the way I want it. I went ahead and chopped the rust off the bottom, and we got her kind of set up right how I want it. Body line back up, and there we go. So I'm going to tack this in at the original part of the body and then just work the entire fender, making sure that everything's straight, and we should be good. Well, we got this panel tacked in there pretty well. I had a blow through here, but no big deal. You just move away from it, let it cool down, come back to it. And now, before I go on to the rear, because that's more or less an easier job, we're going to work on making a patch panel here. Now, this is a compound curve. So the car curves in to the door, and then it curves down and around. So I got myself a plate of 18 gauge steel, and we're going to form this, or at least attempt to form it, to make our patch panel. Now, typically you do this with a mallet and a sandbag. Well, I don't have a sandbag, so got the next best thing. It'll do stuff. You can at least work into it. And I got a mallet, and I got a piece of steel, so we know that I'm going to work it right around here. And this is pretty much where I want to start making my curves. So and we're going to have to work this curve all the way down, pretty much along this line, and then we can start forming our curl underneath. But might not be the right way to do it, but it's a way to do it. It ain't necessarily as soft as doing it on sand, but hey, it's a thing. That'll start working out. And of course, to finish this, body hammer and a dolly to kind of shrink and stretch all this to get it as smooth as we can. So I'm going to continue working on this, and then where it meets the door here, there's some good metal, so I'm going to have to flange, just turn the end of this in, and then we can weld it into here, because all this is gone pretty much. Everything like right here needs to be fabricated, and not much of a fabricator, but we can do something. So I'm going to take this up to the tire and start kind of getting our form in here, so you can see what I'm getting at. That's about where it'll go. So we're starting to actually form to the body, and then this area is what's going to be kind of flanged over and put in, and of course we'll cut this over here. But I'm pretty happy with the start of this panel, and you know, all those dings and stuff I'll clean up with a hammer and dolly, but it's starting to curve under the bottom pretty good. So I'm going to continue working this piece of steel. I'm going to make my cut, and then we can keep at it. we're starting to get somewhere on this quarter panel patch. I got all of the rotted steel out of here. I cut it with a little extra length, and I've just been working on shaping this panel. So right now, she's pretty close. If I lay it in right there, this lines up. We got a little bit blowing out here, so I'm gonna have to flatten that out a little bit. But see if I can hold that so you guys can get a good look at it. So here's the start of our patch panel. And down at the bottom here where it curves underneath, I just made some relief cuts, and I worked this one around. This one's gonna have to work into the curve, and I just work my way around. And once I get it formed, wherever it overlaps, I'll trim and then weld it together. So that's kind of how this is going and how I'm shaping it. Let me turn you guys around here to my disaster of a bench. Is I've got an old piece of rail here, and it's working really good. It's got a soft curve, a hard curve, and I can work my panel around on here. So I can go to the back, like to this piece here, and work it in like that. See how this is making it a nice soft curve, and then I can use the anvil itself to get rid of these dimples and flatten everything out, so it actually will look like a halfway decent repair. This is going to be a lot of back and forth, so I'll move you guys off to the side, and well, we'll speed this up because this is going to be quite the process. Okay, well, I think we got our panel pretty well formed. I had to take it over to the salt bag, because I don't have a sandbag, and kind of bow this bottom out a little bit more. But we got our radius, we got our compound curve down here. It wraps under the car, and it'll sit on there just like that. I'd say that's going to be a pretty decent repair. So I'm going to move over to the anvil and smooth this out. You know, get these bumps out of here using my hammers and stuff. And then we'll do the final trim for the wheel well. We'll create a flange here to weld off of. So I'll put a strip of steel here so I got something to weld on. And yeah, we'll get this thing wrapped up as far as probably the most intensive part of this entire thing is taking a flat piece of sheet metal and turning it into a patch panel that doesn't exist. Well, that's probably as smooth as I'm going to get this panel, just with an anvil and hammers. But it is quite a bit smoother than when I started out. I got a lot of the big dings out from shaping the panel. And probably I'm going to leave this completely raw, well, not raw steel, but coated steel until I decide to paint the other car the rest of the car in 10 years. So, yeah, little dings, a little that. It's still showing off, you know, fabrication work. And am I an experienced metal worker, sheet metal worker? No. Am I an experienced body guy? No. But I benefit from the fact that I'm absolutely out of my mind and nothing scares me. I'm not afraid to take a piece of steel and, you know, maybe waste it, but this is my first try on this panel. This is the one piece of steel I cut out, and I just kept working at it until, I mean, it's pretty damn good. And of course, you know, when we work in here, we'll make the wheel well right. But it just goes to show you, if you just keep working at it, it doesn't matter if you have the skill now. You can develop the skill and at least start down the path of anything you want to do. I never would have thought that I'd just, you know, start beating on a piece of metal to make something that doesn't exist, but here we are. So I'm going to start cleaning this up, get a flange made, and then we're going to, well, buzz this thing in after a little trimming. All right, well, I got everything trimmed. I got this trimmed down so we can have our lip on the inside. This is trimmed to fit, and we also have our flange that's going to continue right there. So that'll also help hold this leading edge. So I guess it's time to start burning stuff together. I got everything cleaned up pretty well. I'm going to probably do a little finish grinding here in the door jamb, a little bit right here, and we can buzz it together. So, I don't know, rock music, blues music. Let's go with rock music, seeing as we're dealing with metal. Well, there we go. We got it tacked in kind of the way I want it. You can see that I brought this in there. And, you know, like I said, I'm not a metal worker, but that looks pretty good, I think, you know, for my first try on this particular panel. Oh, God, excuse me. Now, that's tacked in. That's kind of where I want it. There's a little more to do, but to keep from overwhelming myself, I'm going to move on to the back side here, where we can cut this panel and get it in. Get this back side finished and then work on the top side. So I'm just moving around the panel. One, not to put more heat than I already have, because a couple of my gaps were a little wider than I wanted. Again, not a body guy, but we're going to move on to this, move up to that, get all this tacked in, and then we'll probably jump to the other side, taking the information that I learned on this side, and it'll probably go a lot smoother because I will not have to fabricate a new panel either. So let's get to making this piece fit down there. Sorry about all the air compressor noise, but she's getting a workout today. So we got our edges cleaned up. We can start laying it in and mark it out. So kind of the reason why I left this rusty piece here is it gives me a basis of the panel so I can line it up correctly. Which, right about there, you can hold her steady. There's where our first nut's going to be. So we're going to take this material out, but I'm going to cut it all the way down here to blend it into this flange right there. And we're also going to angle this to kind of meet our wheel arch. So putting it back up into place, if I can hold it still. Our wheel arch continues down like that. So, probably going to want to hack it off. Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. So when I'm taking this tip off to get it to blend into here, I'm going to take a little bit at a time and just kind of lay it on there until I think it'll blend nice. We'll come back, cut this. Obviously, I'm not going to cut this little end out of here because I want it to blend in. So we're going to take it out of this panel. So I'm going to go over to the bandsaw because it's quicker than swapping my tool around. And start kind of hacking at this till I have it where I want it. And then we can slam it in, cut this, and buzzer in. Well, that was pretty quick. I think I got it in the first shot. So, right about there, this comes into that real nice. So I'm going to go ahead and remark it. Oh, one of these days I'm going to get a rolly stool. I don't know why I haven't got one yet. Probably because I hate going to the store unless I need several things. There we go. So we're going to make sure I don't cut that. And this will be our cut. So back to the death wheel. Well, I think that'll do it. Grind this edge and we'll get the tacking this in. And then once I get down here, I can trim this to get it to blend with that. So let's go. Oh, there we go. We got that rear panel in. We got this kind of matched up. I just need a little piece to put in there, and then that'll blend in. But we got the full wheel arch in, patch panel. Like I said, get that tacked in. And we're just going to let that entire panel cool off because a couple areas, it's getting too warm even though I was jumping around. That I'm just going to leave it be. And we're going to probably move up to that part right there. Oh, and this little guy. But that's going to take some work. Yeah, and then a little patch down there. And this quarter will be at least complete and tacked in. Even if I don't get it finish welded today, I'll jump over to the other side and get that side accomplished as well. Well, now it's time to work on this giant patch panel that's going to go up here. So I measured it out to where I can break the angle over, because the way these quarter panels work is you have the outside panel and it breaks over and it's flanged where bolts would hold it to the center trim up here. So I've marked about 1 inch from the straight edge of this, and we're probably going to have to do this on the ground. There's not a whole lot of room on the bench, so I figure what I'll do, take my anvil there that got coffee spilled on it, and we'll put our metal up on there and break it over. So I'm going to put my welding gloves on because the edges of this metal are pretty sharp. Get this over here and start working it down with the hammer. Well, now we've got our flange roughed in. Of course, I'll come back along and run it across the anvil to really get her flattened out. But now we got to start forming the curvature of the patch panel. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably use the other side, and I'll use this little square stock kind of as a form gauge for me to base the curvature of this new panel off of. So I can take this, and I'm not sure if the curve changes from front to back, but that's what we'll find out on the other side of the car. I'd say that's a pretty good fender form right there. So we're good there. What does it look like back here? Yeah, she's looks like about the same curvature throughout the panel. So that makes the fabrication a lot easier. And we have our fender form, or our metal form, right here. So that's what we need to match as we're forming the steel. Well, I think we got our panel fairly formed. Decent curve, it fits with the gauge fairly decent. And yeah, I decided to go ahead and, you know, stretch my hand a little bit with the hammer. But that should be sufficient. I can continue to fold this edge over now and work my way into getting the bolts out of this quarter, kind of lay it up in here. So I'm probably going to come along. Yeah, I guess I don't even need to cut the top of this to see how this drops in. I'll just get these bolts out and take that old flange out of there. So let's keep rolling. Well, you can see what I'm driving at here. I need to pull that taillight bezel off so I can scoot this back a little bit. And then, of course, once I can get it set where I want, I can mark where I drill my holes, weld the bolts in, and suck this panel in. I'll have to do it a couple of times, so I'll have to bolt it in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut through both pieces once I get this top part bolted in, and then it'll be much easier to have one line to weld on, and it should go pretty well, I think. But it'll be nice to have the top of this fender all patched up once we get the old metal out of there. And of course, I'll make a little patch for here because of this crease. I didn't want to work with a full piece of metal like this. So we'll get that crease in, get that patched, and a little bit in the back there. And we should, I think, be all right. So let's keep trucking at it. Well, I got the center trim kind of mocked up in here. And it's looking pretty good. I need to notch a couple of these holes to move this up a little bit more. But it seems like our curvature is going to work. So what I'm going to have to do back here, because this actually tapers in a bit. And of course, it's sitting on the panel. But I'll have to taper this part in a little bit to meet the taillight housing. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah, there's a lot of like ripples in here from just working it with a hammer. But I don't have an English wheel. I don't really have any metalworking tools aside from hand tools. And yeah, I could spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. You get the point on smoothing this out. But the highs and lows aren't so bad to where when this car eventually gets painted, or if we just fog this quarter kind of this crappy purple color, it just a skim coat of body filler would actually cover it up, and you wouldn't have to pile it on. You know, this obviously isn't a show car, but you know, I don't want rain or rust. And of course, on a drag strip, if you got holes everywhere in a quarter fender, they're probably not going to like it when it's going like this down the drag strip. So I need to find some bolts that I can weld into this flange so I can suck this in tight, and then take the death wheel and just cut through both panels so we have a nice even line. So yeah, I keep saying I'm gonna get to it. I probably should. Got to find some bolts. Well, we got our fender bolted securely. So now I'm going to just run some tapper sheet tap screws and get it tight to the rest of the quarter, and then we can make our cut. And I don't have the right bit. Well, what the hell? All right, I'm back. I got the right bit now. So we're just gonna put it up because I want to make my cut below it. There we go. Put another one about here-ish. Well, we got our upper quarter in, and pretty well the way I want it. I got the taillight bezel fitted on there. I'm going to do a little trimming on the back to get that to suck in a little better. But it's all tacked in. It's not going anywhere. Of course, I need to tack close these holes I put in it to secure it to the old sheet metal. But right now is we're going to move on to this area right here. So I got a piece cut out, and I'm going to start with putting this crease in it, and then that crease will dictate where I kind of lay the panel and then how I make the curve. So we're going to move over to the anvil and start working that piece, starting with this straight crease here. All right, here's our little piece. So I'm going to, there. There we go. Got her marked with the hammer, and we're going to lay it out. And I'm actually going to use this hard edge here to kind of work it. And I've got this at an angle for a reason. It'll cover all of the rust without really taking up a whole lot of anything else. So you can see that I've beaten on it. It's starting to form that hard line, which is what I want. And that's also a guide to work that crease in. So I'm gonna figure out how much of an angle I need here, but well, I've got our little patch panel formed. We've got our crease, we've got our flat and our curvature, And if I lay it over the panel, that's about perfect. Maybe a little tweak up here. It's flat on this side, so I'll just take this over the anvil quick and kind of flatten this upper part out. But you can see that that fits perfect. So now it'll just slide over where my repair is going to be, and we'll mark it out, cut it out, and buzz it in. So fairly simple repair. Doesn't look too bad. It ain't like it's all lumpy or anything, just because I worked it exclusively on the anvil. So I'm probably going to flatten this little kink out right here, and then we'll be ready to go. Well, there we go. We got our little patch panel in here. That crease feels pretty good. Pretty happy with that little patch. I like that. And of course, one thing I didn't mention when I was doing this is once we take the body off the frame and all this crap isn't in the way, I can actually get up in here with a dolly and continue working on smoothing this out, smooth that a little bit, and really actually make it look pretty nice. So next thing I'm going to do is work on the patch for down here. So we're going to match this curve and take out this material. It seems like the stuff on the bottom is good enough. Hopefully I don't have to rebuild all of that, and then we can bring our fender out to meet it. And yeah, so same thing as making this panel, except I don't have to put a crease in it. I'm just going to take it over the anvil and slowly shape it into the form I want. So let's continue on with that. Well, like with any project, you run into stuff and you change your mind. So instead of just replacing a panel in here, I kept poking through it with the screwdriver as I was tapping on it. So I'm just going to remake this entire lower part of the quarter and have the factory mount for the brace in there. So I'm going to cut a bigger piece of steel out and, well, make this panel pretty simple. Just one basic curve, break under the bottom. We'll bring it up into here, and we'll use this as our template as far as setting everything up, curvature and everything. So I'm going to get that piece of steel cut out, and we'll start forming it. Well, we got our new panel pounded out, and the old one fits in there nice. I could smooth this out a little bit, but it's about perfect. So I could trace this with my marker, and of course add that other little piece in there, and we'll have ourselves a patch panel ready to throw at that quarter. So let's keep going. And there we go. You can see the old rusty piece. Brand new sheet metal. We got it bolted into the brace. All this is new all the way to the brace. And she fits pretty good, I think. So, yeah, I like that. satisfied with the result of all this work. Now, it may only look like an hour-long video, I figure, by the time I get done editing it. But this took about 13, 14 hours, and I still have to go around and finish welding everything. But that'll wait till next time I'm on the car. I spent quite a bit of time between doing this, collecting parts. Over in the corner, I've got my leaf springs and hanger kit for the front end. All my material showed up for the chassis. I picked up a straight front axle. I've got a Borg Warner Super T.N.T 4-speed, so we're getting all the parts really quick for this car. But this is about all the time I have to do this particular project. Now, just to show you how much steel I took out of this that was rotten, like this, and the upper quarter, and the lower rear of the quarter, and I guaranteed one-off, only hand fabricated radius wheel arch on a Checker Marathon. Because that's what she used to look like, and that's what she is now. And you'll only find that here at T.N.T Garage and Performance, mainly because I'm absolutely insane and think sticking all this work into a car like this is a smart thing to do. However, like I said throughout the video, I am not an experienced fabricator. Have I done stuff in the past? Yes. But I'm also not afraid to cut things up, work things out, and do it. And you shouldn't be either, because it's time consuming. That's all it is. You know, take your time, take your time, take your time. If you're doing something like this and you're getting frustrated, walk away or move to another area. Just try to keep your mind on it without going and sitting on the couch. So, I mean, we've got a hand fabricated corner down here. We've got hand fabricated here, hand fabricated here, hand fabricated here. The only piece of metal that was already formed in this quarter panel is this wheel arch right here, which started off like that. Of course, this is for the other side. But I'm not going to document doing the other side because that side's really clean. It's going to be pretty easy. So, I mean, this is where the hardest work went in, and there's still a lot to do on this body. We got to repair the rockers. I got to fix that then. We'll get to that later. That's not a big thing. So fix the rockers and fix the floor along with doing that other quarter. And that's where I'll pretty much be happy with the body work. Other than a couple little, I need to make a couple tiny patches, but just boring stuff like that. But I mean, I'm pretty proud of this. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this whole process. I didn't think one quarter panel would take up an entire video, but here we are. So if you enjoyed this, and especially this project, you can go back in the catalog. I've actually created playlists for each project on T.N.T Garage. And this one, of course, will be added to the Checker Gasser build. And you can check out this, all of my other stuff. Big block build, probably coming in a bit. But the frame is going to be probably the next thing on the docket that you guys see, was getting the body off of this car, getting the chassis out, getting that built. So, like I said, if you want to see anything like that, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, like, share. I mean, it helps me out. I really enjoy doing this. I enjoy your guys' comments when you comment. Go ahead and find me at T.N.T Garage and Performance on Facebook, and also T.N.T Performance and Garage on Instagram. And you'll be able to see little stuff like this, updates on some projects when I'm home and doing them before a video comes out. And, well, I mean, that pretty much sums it up for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the music as well. I had a lot of fun putting it together that I put in this video. Some pretty good stuff, some kind of bluesy stuff, some rocking stuff. So, like I said, hopefully you enjoyed it. And until next time, remember, if it ain't broke, fix fix it till it is. We'll see you soon.